What happens when a world-class nutritionist uses blood panels, cellular biology, and fact-based science to create and monitor healthy eating plans with supplements for her clients? Everyone wins. Welcome to Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy, an educational experience that gives you both the actionable and practical tools you can use every day to get your health, weight, and life back on track.
Hi, Haylie. We are so excited to have you with us today. Could you start by just giving us a little bit of your backstory?
I always had a puny immune system. I guess I'll say that. I had strep a lot as a kid. I had systemic eczema, terrible food allergies. I was very puny, but I had an extreme passion for animals and science. And so I, at a very early age, decided I wanted to go to vet school, and I had my sights set on Colorado State University's veterinary college. It was an amazing school. And I actually was in my junior year of college, and I had gotten an alternate position and acceptance to CSU for veterinary school. And at the same time, my health was really not good. I was, sick all the time, strep all the time. My eczema was out of control, and I ended up having a tonsillectomy, and I hemorrhaged pretty severely from the tonsillectomy. And at that time, they couldn't figure out, kind of why I hemorrhaged, and so they started running a lot of labs, and it turned out that I have a very rare autoimmune disorder, a bleeding disorder called ITP, which is where the body attacks its own platelets. So I took a medical leave of absence from school. I took 60 milligrams of prednisone, a lot of anti-rejection drugs. It was a couple of years of this process of trying to get my immune system under control. And I ended up hospitalized with a strep infection on my right kidney and losing part of my right kidney function. And I'll never forget, not getting to be in the barn. I was in a hospital bed, and the barn was my heaven, and being in the hospital was the opposite of that. And I remember laying there and thinking, I've got to do something else. That this path, treatment, is not working for me. It's keeping me out of vet school. It's keeping me off my horses. It's keeping me out of life. And I just laid there and said, kind of one of those moments where you say, if I make it through this, then I'm going to do something different. And so I started studying biochemistry and the chemistry of the body, definitely the chemistry of the blood and all the nutrients that were associated with that. And I totally changed paths. I started studying homeopathy, herbology, nutrition, just everything I could get my hands on that were therapies that would help promote health as opposed to try to control disease. And in my early 20s, I was able to nourish my body to the point where I was off all medications. I have not been back on them since, thank goodness. And I just decided that at a very young age, I would open my first integrative healthcare clinic, and I'd bring all kinds of experts that I had, met and learned from along the way under one roof, and started that first clinic in Fort Collins, Colorado. It was an amazing experience, and then started opening and consulting for a lot of other clinics and their practices. I had a practice in Beverly Hills, in Burbank, in Encino, Valencia at one point, and in Colorado. And then I started flying all over the United States and even out of the country with clients, helping them navigate their own health crises and health journeys, and bringing, the experts to the table and creating this philosophy of a clinic without walls. And, how can we, I've made phone calls to every medical establishment and university, it feels like, just seeking knowledge and information on behalf of my clients that are kind of struggling with their health and wellness. And then one of my clients asked me to write a book, and I thought he was kidding because I'm dyslexic. And so, books are a very touchy subject for me, and feeling less than or not really as capable as many other people are in consuming knowledge in the written form. I'm an ear reader, what I call an ear reader. I do everything audio. So I wrote a book, and it went instant #1 New York Times bestselling book. And I believe that happened because, one, I was super candid and transparent about my own journey, the struggles that I had been through, the struggles that I had witnessed and participated with my clients going through. And the science and the fact that you can nourish your body and that food is medicine and that, a healthier body is going to respond to anything, to surgery, to drug therapies, to, even natural therapies better. And so, gosh, I've been in practice for 26 years in clinical practice, and knock on wood, in a very outrageously state of outrageous health, which feels really good, and am just honored and privileged to have created this incredible community where people can go for resources and zero judgment and 100% embrace them on their health journey and their decisions along the way in their health journey, and to be able to teach people about the power of micronutrients, supplementation, food, and the power of being curious about what's going on in your body and gentle with yourself when you're struggling, and doubling down on what's getting you in a positive health direction. So I came from the barn. I always say I got drug out of the barn and into a hospital bed, and was determined to get myself back into a barn, and along the way have had the extreme privilege of creating this incredible community and clinic and walk with some of the most brilliant people on their journeys that are very similar to my own.
Can you share the most interesting story that happened to you since you started your career? What were the main lessons or takeaways from that story?
Okay, a crazy story that happened was I was asked to work with Cher as her personal nutritionist, and she was doing a residency in Las Vegas at the time. And, first let me tell you that in our family, Cher is the ultimate icon. I did not know her personally when I was first asked to work with her, but all the women in our family just held her at this iconic status. And so, being asked to work with her, I was probably one of the most nervous going to first appointments that you could ever imagine. And, she has been and was incredible to work with, and, just a lovely human being, and, had a genuine kindness to her team, to her staff, to her family. And I had a, professional relationship with her. And at the time, my mother's brother passed away, and I had to cancel an appointment and reschedule an appointment. And I, had apologized for having to cancel, and I had told her that my mom's brother passed away. And right there in the middle of, we were trying to get her ready for, a big, amazing event. And right there, she stopped everything. And she said, let's get your mom, on the next flight for the next show to Vegas, and let's, have her sit front row, and let's take her backstage. And, the generosity was just unbelievable, because, Cher just gave so much to me and to my family, and didn't need to do that because, we had a professional relationship. But the biggest takeaway that I had from that is that no matter, what you have going on, and again, with someone that's so iconic and has such a large responsibility, and, she's doing this huge shows and a lot of demand on her, that it means so much to stop and connect with someone on a personal level and help people have joy in their life during difficult times. And I reflect back on that, because it made, as you can imagine, my mother was just, felt like the queen of the world. And we had some awesome pictures together, and we got to hang out in her suite at Caesars. And we flew on the Caesars plane. But I think is no matter how busy you are, or how large you grow, or how important your work is, that there really is nothing more important in life than a human connection with another person, and reaching down and picking somebody up when they're struggling. And I literally think about how I felt at that moment, and how she made my family feel, And I use that as an inspiration for our community, because people in our community are dealing with health issues and the loss of loved ones. And I just think about that kindness and giving what you have to bring joy every day. So that was a life-changing, totally crazy, no one would believe an event that happened that really changed the trajectory. And the thing that was really cool was after the curtains went down and the show was getting ready to start, one of Cher's assistants came down the aisle and started calling out my name and saying, Haylie. And my mom and I turned around and we thought we were going to lose our seats, because sometimes when you go with an individual and you get to, jump into some amazing seats, sometimes if someone buys them, you end up having to hang out backstage. So I said to my mom, oh no, we may end up having to go backstage. But instead she leaned over and she said, Cher wanted me to tell you, stay in your seat and she'll send someone for you when the show's over. So not only was my mom like front and center, but everybody that was sitting around us knew that Cher was waiting for her when we were done. And just that reaching down and lifting someone up when they're struggling, I have carried that with me every single day in our community.
Can you share a story about the biggest mistake you made when you were first starting? Can you tell us what lesson you learned from that?
To create a nutrition plan for a celebrity that they had hired to endorse this large weight loss company. And I, created the nutrition program and I designed all their meal maps, and they did, phenomenal and lost a bunch of weight. And then, this person was the spokesperson for this huge weight loss company, and all of it said, I lost all this weight because of this other company. And, I was compensated and everything, but it really hurt my heart to feel like something that I had worked really hard on and that was, fundamentally fed the person healthfully and nourished their body, and they looked amazing and they had this incredible glow. And then they were out promoting this diet program that was about, fake food and diet food. And it just broke my heart to see this, huge kind of corporate weight loss company perpetuating really negative food and negative food behaviors based on a person that I had nourished and helped just look incredible and glow. And so people wanted to look like this celebrity, but what they were saying she did in order to look like it could not have been further from reality or the truth. And I think when I first, when I was offered the job, I just didn't understand the ramifications of someone standing up and saying, look at me, I lost all this weight. They were all over TV. I lost all this weight. And I didn't understand the ramifications of all these people seeing this beautiful person that looked healthy and vibrant because we fed them so well and we nourished them so well and we helped to heal their metabolism. So they lost a bunch of weight. But the commercials were all around this, really what I feel like detrimental weight loss company. So that was early in my career. I still have a lot of personal angst about it, and my heart hurts because I wonder how many people, maybe adopted this other really unhealthful eating style because of how amazing this person that I worked with looked. But what I learned from that is to try to really be aware of where and how your efforts in life are going to be used. And I learned that, I guess that I'm trying to think of a good way to say it. I learned that everything isn't always as it seems, that in marketing, especially in the diet space, there's a lot of misinformation, abusive language, guilt and shame. And this is why I'm saying it was a big mistake or something I really grieve a lot about, but it lit a fire within me to really go after the diet industry and say, fake foods slow the metabolism, counting calories are a lie, fall in love with food, put power on your plate. It really gave me a lot of conviction that even though I was a very small brand at the time, that I wasn't afraid to take on some of the negative guilt, shame, and abusive language and behavior that was going on in the diet industry.
None of us are able to achieve success without some help along the way. Is there a particular person who you are grateful towards who helped you get to where you are? Can you share a story about that?
I would say probably the most influential person that I could credit my success would be my mother. So, like many moms, she's encouraging and supportive. She's also very inspirational in her own journey. She's dyslexic like myself. She is eclectic like myself as well, having an education in optical physics, fertility, acupuncture, and political science, and religious studies. But really because she's always believed that I could figure things out. When I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, I was very young. I was 19. And she literally said to me, I'm not worried because I know you'll figure this out. And maybe that feels like a lot of pressure for a young woman to try to figure out an autoimmune disorder and how to not just survive it, but thrive in the face of that. But I think it was that blinded belief in my ability to problem solve that has allowed me to be successful in, the publishing world, despite being severely dyslexic, being successful in business, being successful in my own health journey. And I just think it's that blind faith that I have some sort of magical ability to solve problems. And, whether that's true or not, I've walked with that reality because my mom constantly said so.
Okay, perfect. Now let's jump to our main focus. When it comes to health and wellness, how is the work you're doing helping to make a bigger impact on the world?
So I think why our work has made such a profound impact and will continue to make a profound impact is kind of threefold. It's science-based, so it's not, there's no fad dieting, there's no, extreme starvation or extreme biochemistry reaction like keto or fasting. But most importantly, it's based on the foundation that, food is medicine, that you can nourish a body to health, is about making peace with food, about cherishing the relationship and healing some of the negative feelings and emotions that people have around food, and that it's very empowering. People become empowered by working through our programs. They become knowledgeable. They become in control of their health. They become in control of their lives. And it also makes a generational shift. All of the food that we prepare together in our community are things that we would be so proud and feel so proud of ourselves to feed our children and our grandchildren. And that's not common in the diet space. The ability for us to, as a community, to embrace the power of food and how it can impact our life in a positive way in a strategic plan that makes the clinical change is empowering and enriching. And I think that's how we're changing the world. I am out to completely alleviate guilt and shame and blame from the eating process. I want people to fall in love with food and celebrate what it can do for our bodies when we have the knowledge and the power to know how to use it to achieve health.
Could you share your top 5 lifestyle tweaks that you believe will help support people's journey towards better health?
Okay, so my 5 lifestyle hacks that will completely change your life and put you on the path to wellness. Number 1 is eat 5 times a day, 3 meals and 2 snacks. When you eat, number 2, make sure that it's actually food. So My definition of food is something that was once alive, that came from the land, the sky, or the sea. Number 3, eat within 30 minutes of waking. You want to set your metabolism, your rate of burn, as early as possible in the day. We are putting a lot of expectations on our bodies all day long, and we want to nourish it right out of the gate. Number 4, dilution is the solution for pollution. And you can support your body's ability to detoxify by drinking half your body weight in ounces of water, in ounces of spring water every day. Number 5, put power on your plate by adopting the philosophy that you can use food strategically to speed up the metabolism, reduce inflammation, balance hormones, reverse disease, and have an abundance of energy.
If you could start a movement that would bring the most amount of wellness to the most amount of people, what would that be?
The movement that I would start would be that food could not be called food if it had a chemical or additive or preservative anywhere in it. We would call it anything or something other than the word food. It is insane that we are allowed to market tartarazine, take that out, yellow number 5, blue dyes, red dyes, aspartame, that we are allowed to market that as a food product. It is not food. So that would be the largest movement, would be taking that word back as a nation. We can only call food product the name food if it is actually only food. That would get rid of diabetes, reverse the majority of autoimmune disorders, change our risk factors for cancer, increase fertility rates. It would be profound.
What are 5 things that you wish someone told you before you started?
There's 5 things that I wish people would have told me before I started. You can do anything in the world, but you don't have to do everything. And I can't tell you that I actually believe that, but I wish somebody would have told me, maybe if I would have heard it younger, I would have believed it, that sometimes when you're forging new paths, you're going to get whacked in the face with branches. that when you decide to go out against this a very large, highly monetized industry like the diet industry, even though the science supports you and the outcome proves that your belief system will help people, that, large companies can be vicious. And I wish somebody would have told me that, so maybe that I would have had a little thicker skin, a little younger. Number 4, I wish somebody would have told me to buy agriculture land, buy up as much agriculture land as I could in my 20s, because I think that the ability to grow your own food or have control over what is put in your food and how your food is grown is going to be a huge determinant in longevity, quality of life, and your overall health. When I was younger, when I was first starting out, I wish that, someone would have told me maybe earlier on that everything that I'm going through with my own health challenges had a purpose, so that I was going to ultimately be able to help other people. It completely makes sense now, but when I was going through it and I was, on medication and really struggling, I felt really alone, and I felt really like there wasn't a strong support community that I could go to, and that's why, I have such conviction about our community, is because I don't want anybody to feel the way that I felt at that moment in time. Now it makes sense. Now I understand why I needed to go through that, but I wish somebody would have whispered in my ear back then that this purpose was to come.
Sustainability, veganism, mental health, and environmental changes are big topics right now. Which one of these causes is the dearest to you, and why?
I think one of the most important causes, all of them are valuable, but I think where I see myself playing the strongest role is more in mental health when it comes to self-love and appreciating your body and having a positive relationship with food. So one of the things that I really tell our community all the time is, especially when your body's struggling, make sure that you're very kind and very gentle with your body. Make sure that you're nourishing it in a way that feeds your body to health. And I think oftentimes when we're struggling, whether that's with depression or anxiety or fatigue, or kids have issues where they're having a hard time self-regulating with frustration or aggression or any of that, there is nothing more powerful than food to help soothe and settle the body. And so I think creating that healthy relationship with food and a healthy relationship with the body is where I see us making a huge impact. And we receive, thousands of letters and comments about weight loss or health improvement or reduction in cholesterol. But I think where we are maybe the most touched is when people share stories about having, dieted all of their life, or having self-loathing of their bodies, or having anxiety or fear going into a grocery store, or stress around preparing a meal. And when we hear the stories of that changing, of where they feel empowered and in power, because the relationship with food is the ultimate love affair. It is truly till death do us part. It's life-sustaining, and and health-giving if used in a healthful way. So I think that area is where we make the most impact, and something that's really important to me. And why is it important to me is because being a person that has an autoimmune disorder, especially I have ITP, which is a bleeding disorder, there are those dark moments where, there's a lot of frustration and anger around why the body has turned on itself, and the fear, or what we call fear of the flare, where there's a lot of angst and anxiety around having an autoimmune flare. And I think understanding the biochemistry of how our food and our bodies engage and interact together really helped me not have disdain for my body, because it was doing the best job that it could do, and not have anxiety about a flare, because I know how to empower my body through food. So it was a very personal journey through a lot of anxiety and a lot of darkness that I came through, and that's why I really want to empower and put people in power of their putting power on their plate.
Thank you for listening to another inspiring episode of Power on Your Plate with Haylie Pomroy. Please remember to share the amazing science and tools with someone you love. The more we know, the more we all lift our global health together. Visit www.hayliepomroy.com to get notes from today's show and to take your education and health to a new level of success and happiness.
Information on this podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for the advice provided by your physician or other healthcare professional, or any information contained on or in any product label or packaging. You should not use the information on this podcast for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease, or prescribing any medication or other treatment. You should always speak with your physician or other healthcare professional before taking any medication or nutritional, herbal, or homeopathic supplement, or adopting any treatment for a health problem. If you have or suspect that you have a medical problem, promptly contact your healthcare provider. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking professional advice because of something you've heard on this podcast. Information provided on this podcast and the use of any products or services purchased as a result of this podcast does not create any type of professional relationship between you and any of the associates affiliated with this podcast. Information and statement regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.